Hi, this is Lee Phillips. I want to talk to you for a minute. As an attorney, I want to explain the concept in trusts. Now, there are lots of different types of trusts: revocable, irrevocable, charitable, offshore, remainder land trust. A dozen different types of trusts. Don't let that bother you. The one that we're going to talk about right now is the trust that you're going to use for estate planning. It's usually called a living revocable trust. And I've got a husband and I've got a wife. Here's the question. Do we have one document or a joint trust, or does he have a document and she has a document, separate trusts? And the answer is, I don't know. Some of the lawyers have separate trusts, some of the lawyers have a joint trust, and it's about probably 80% joint trust, 20% single trusts. So if you've got single trusts, don't worry about it. If you get a joint trust, don't worry about that. You're fine. There are advantages and disadvantages to both of them, and it's about sixes, half dozen of one, six of another, you understand? The joint trust has the difficulty of when one of the spouses dies, then we have to go on without a joint. It now is a single. So we have to provide for that within the document itself, and that can be done. There's no problem there. Whereas if we have his and hers, she dies, then this trust, we do with it whatever it says to do in the document. We give it to the kids, we send it over to the spouse, it's all his now. We don't know what you're going to do with it. You can do whatever you want. But this is wrapped up. That trust is terminated. And by the way, when the spouse dies, when she dies, this becomes an irrevocable trust. We've talked about that. And this irrevocable trust files its own tax return, does everything. When it's wrapped up according to the terms of the document, then we file the final tax return and it goes away. We still have his trust and it goes on as long as he lives or until it terminates for some other reason. So it's a little easier when one spouse dies to continue with his trust or her trust. However, while you're alive, it's probably a lot easier for most couples to have the joint trust. We consider everything ours anyway. We own it jointly now. Now, some couples don't own things jointly now. If you go look at the plat, the map down at the county recorders in my neighborhood, you can't tell who owns this piece or this piece or this piece. Some of them are owned by one spouse. Now, all these guys are doctors, okay? There are 38 MDs within 2 blocks of my house. They call the little hill that we live on Pill Hill, right? And the doctor is going to be sued. He's liable for stuff. So the house is in his wife's name. Now, we're not in a community property state, so this works pretty good. If she sets up a trust, it will be a her trust, and it will be hers. Sue the doctor husband, can't get house. And I've seen it the reverse, where she's the doctor and he's doing something else that's not as big a liability. So the trusts work better, his and hers, if we're trying to do asset protection. Now, my particular trust, when I write a trust, it will often have his trust, her trust, and a joint trust. So he can isolate his assets, she can isolate her assets, and even if you're a community property state, property that's inherited or comes by a gift, we can isolate those into husband or isolate those into wife. And that protects them. If the husband gets sued or if the wife gets sued, we can't come and get the other person's property. Of course, we want it in the trust. My house is owned by my wife's trust. Now, I don't have it owned by my wife because if she dies, I don't want to have to probate our house. So it's in the house for probate, it's in the trust for probate avoidance. And that's why you use these living revocable trusts. This concept of asset protection, his trust, her trust, is kind of a little bonus that we get in the living revocable trusts. Generally, the living revocable trusts don't give you any asset protection. But if we have his and hers in the right situation, we can protect some assets from his liabilities or her liabilities. But like I say, I have one piece of paper, it's 30 some odd 40 pages long, but it establishes a his trust and a her trust and a joint trust. And as the couple goes along during their lifetime, they can decide which assets they're going to put in his, which assets they're going to put in hers, or which assets they're going to put in the common or the joint trust. But for mom and pop, we're not worried about asset protection or anything else. I do a joint trust, one document that describes a trust that is here while both mom and dad are alive, and then when one of them dies, it just continues on. So joint trust, separate trusts, 6 of one, half dozen of another. Do it any way you're comfortable. Actually, what you're going to get is what the lawyer has on his word processing system. So you're not in trouble either way. This is Lee Phillips trying to explain joint trusts and single trusts.